to my new video about wargames, and today I would like to talk a bit about one of my absolute favorite games, Advanced Squad Leader Starter Kit. It was one of my first English wargames, and also this is a game that I really fell in love, and it was kinda love from the first sight, even if it was accidentally. Because I found this game in the local game store on sale, because it had a slightly damaged box, so it was quite cheap, so I decided to give it a try, especially since I heard something about this game. And I purchased it, I started to play it, and I remember making a lot of mistakes. Well, playing Advanced Squad Leader is kinda learning on your own mistakes, especially when it comes to the rules. So I remember making a lot of mistakes, but I still enjoyed this game a lot. I joined the community of Advanced Squad Leader players, and I can already say this is extremely friendly and helpful community, one of the best I ever saw in the board games. And I think I sunk completely. I purchased Starter Kit 2, Starter Kit 3, and after about 3 years of playing Starter Kit, I moved into full Advanced Squad Leader, but even so, I still enjoy Starter Kit a lot. Well, what is Advanced Squad Leader Starter Kit? Original Advanced Squad Leader started in the middle of 80s, and as a next step of evolution of the Squad Leader game. It was a very complicated game, and even today it is probably the most complicated wargame ever made. Here you can see some kind of pocket edition of the Advanced Squad Leader rulebook. So you can tell there is a hell of rules, and now it's easy to guess that such a number of rules was way too much for a lot of players who would like to enjoy this game. So that's why Multiman Publishing created Starter Kit. Starter Kit is somehow a light version of Advanced Squad Leader. For example, Starter Kit 1 has such a rulebook. Yes, that's the rulebook for this game. You can tell the difference between this and that. Of course, such comparison might make some mistakes. So if you would think that this is the shortest version of that. No, that's not true. Advanced Squad Leader Starter Kit is a game about infantry only. You get only infantry units, you get only some special weapons, and so. In the Advanced Squad Leader Starter Kit 2, you also get ordnance. So anti-tank guns, anti-air guns, howitzer, and everything like this. And finally, in the Advanced Squad Leader Starter Kit 3, you get vehicles, mostly tanks, but also some carriers and stuff like that. There is also Advanced Squad Leader Starter Kit 4, released about a year ago, about Pacific Theater of War. But these games put together, each of them is solitary standalone product. You can purchase them in any way you like. You don't have to purchase Starter Kit 2 if you don't have Starter Kit 1, and so each of them is independent standalone game. Starter Kit 1 is easiest of them because it contains infantry units only, so you are playing with infantry only, and it contains a number of very cool and nice scenarios. Also, this is quite a small game, and this is another reason that I like this game, because look, this is the entire board for this scenario. And most scenarios takes place sometimes on the entire board, sometimes on just a half of the board, rarely on the two boards placed together next to each other in the such way or in the such way. But this is still something small if you compare this with big war games with dozens of counters and big boards. So this is something you can easily put even on your small table without taking a lot of space. There is not a big number of counters here. As you can see, here is a setup for the first scenario. This is not much of them. And also this is quite fast. Another thing which makes this game good. And it is very interactive. So this is not kind of game when one player makes his actions and the other goes to prepare some tea, coffee or something like this. No, both players are engaged all the time. They are still doing something. Even if there is an enemy action, you are still free to make something in enemy action phase as well, to stop him, to fight with him, to retreat. So this is a very good game, and I would like to show you why. And my idea is to record some of the Advanced Squad Leader Starter Kit scenarios, playthroughs, to show you basics of this system. I think there is already a number of Advanced Squad Leader Starter Kit videos on YouTube, so I know that I won't be first and I won't be probably the best as well, but I hope I might be still helpful. Also, if you are just starting your adventure with Advanced Squad Leader Starter Kit, there are two things you might like to get. First is that very handy player aid. You can find it on the Board Game Geek, and it summarizes all the rules from Advanced Squad Leader Starter Kits 1 to 3, and it is very good if you don't have to remember everything that you might or you must do in each phase. So that's the good thing. Also, if you are just starting and you feel that rules might be too hard or too complicated, yes, these rules also can be complicated. There are great tutorials for this game written by the J. Richardson, and you can find them on the Board Game Geek as well. And I strongly recommend you to download them and to learn with them, because I think most of the players will tell you that J. Richardson tutorials are the best tutorials for the Advanced Squad Leader Starter Kit ever made. So, let's take a look on the game. Let's start with looking on our counters. In the Starter Kit 1 we have basically three types of counters, or maybe two, maybe start with two. We have units, and that are usually called multi-man counters, and commanders, that are mostly called single-man counters. Let's start with units. We can have squad, which has three silhouettes of the man on the icon, or half squad, which has two men on the silhouette. If the squad is reduced because of some reason during the combat or so, it changes into half squad, and if half squad is reduced, it is eliminated. There are three values on each squad or half squad, and let's take a look on them now. First we have firepower. It tells us how strong unit is and how good it can fire. I guess it's quite simple. It can be underlined. If it is underlined, unit is allowed to make assault fire. I will tell you later what it is. Next we have a fire range. So with this factor tells us how far unit might fire. So it is expressed in hexes. So if unit has 4, it can fire 1, 2, 3, 4 hexes range. It can fire 1, 2, 3, or 4. No, it can also fire on the further range, but it provides us some limitations. And next we have morale. Morale tells us how good unit is when it comes to the enduring the stress of the battle, losses, and so on. Every time game calls us for morale check, and it calls us quite often, we have to make 2d6, like here, and make a roll. If our result is lower on or equal to the morale, unit passed, and if it's higher, for example like that, it is unit didn't pass, and it suffers some losses because of that. Sometimes, usually it's just broken, and it is flipped on the other side. And this side is for rotated units. Broken units. These units are well, panicked. They are just trying to find a cover. They are not able to fight, fire, or anything like that. When unit is broken, it just seeks the best and shortest way to find some cover where it can rally itself and return to normal. Also, some units, like for example this American paratrooper, has smoke exponent. It is on the right corner of the firepower. I'm not sure if it is perfectly visible here, but there is a tree here, and this is something that allows unit to put a smoke cover. You have to make a roll, and if you would roll a number which is lower or equal than this result, for example 1, unit may place a smoke counter on its hex, and it gets some cover against enemy fire. And now when it comes to the commanders or also single man counters, there are only two values. Commander's morale, so this is the same like with the unit, and commander's leadership modifier. With this modifier, commander might modify morale checks for his units when they are on the same hex. For example, if this commander would be on the same hex with this squad, and this squad would be would be forced to make morale check, we can subtract 1 from the result because of -1 leadership modifier of the commander. So I would roll 3, and because of the leadership modifier, I would modify this result and get 2 instead. So this is quite good, and commanders also have some nice options that you will see later. Overall, all in all, this game is called Advanced Squad Leader, and they are squad leaders. So that's all when it comes to the units and single man and multi-man counters. You can see there is a lot of them, and they have various ratings. For example, these are American paratroopers, so they are elite units. They have very good firepower, normal, well, not quite normal, rather a small range of fire and excellent morale. And here we have German paratroopers. They have smaller firepower than American paratroopers. They have equal fire range, but they have better morale since they are fighting longer time in the war, so they are more battle hardened, and they are better. Here we have a normal German infantry squad. You can see that they have better fire range than American paratroopers, since they are better armed with longer range weapons, but they have smaller firepower because they have less machine guns or so. So that's all when it comes to the basics, and I think we will see everything else during the gameplay. We are starting with Retaking Vierville scenario because this is this is a perfect introductory scenario because it's easy. Also, this scenario needs only infantry units, so we don't get any special weapons and fancy stuff like that. And finally, this is cool because it is actually about both sides attacking. Yes, it may sound strange, but at the beginning of the game, a small group of American paratroopers is defending Vierville against Germans coming from the both sides, from the north and south. But then a number of American guys comes from the east and attacks those Germans that are attacking our Vierville. So this is quite a cool and dramatic scenario with a lot of nice actions. So this is a good thing to start your adventure with Advanced Squad Leader Starter Kit. So let's start setting our game up. First we have to check what victory conditions are. The Americans win at the game end if there are no good order, this means not broken, German units in the buildings N5, N6, M4 and L3. So there are 4 hexes that we have to keep safe from Germans, and I would like to mark them to remember about this. So they are N5, N6, M4 and L3. I marked them with the counters from some other game with D as defender, so they are controlled by Americans at the beginning of the game, and Americans have to do everything they can to protect these buildings from Germans. And if Germans control at last one of these buildings at the end of the game, then they are victorious. So before game start, we can set up some of the American units. Only these 3 squads, 1 half squad and 1 commander. They can be placed on N3, N4, M5 or L5 hexes, so this road, but only 1 unit per hex. So L3, M4, M3, M4, M5, and the commander goes here. And that's how Americans are starting. There are no German units at the board at the beginning of the game, so they will come later during the game. And that's all when it comes to the setting game up. We are ready to start play. Like I said before, there is a very good player aid that I strongly recommend you to print, because it helps a lot to remember about things that we have to do, and trust me, it is easy to forget about some special rules of some phases. This might look complicated because it covers all 3 starter kits, while we're going to use only starter kit 1 rules, so we don't care about vehicles, artillery and so on, and there is a lot of stuff here about this kind of weapons, but even so this can be very helpful to remember about everything we need. So now, when we know the basics, we can start with setting up our game. First about the board. We can see at the scenario chart that a board should be placed like here, with only hexes A, V are playable. So we are starting with hex rows A to hex row V, and all the others are off limit for us. And next about victory conditions. The Americans win the game if at the game end, if there are no good order German units in the buildings N5, N6, M4 and L3. So Americans have to keep these buildings till the end of the game. To remember about this, I'm going to mark them with counters coming from some other game, but they are quite handy here. So these buildings have to stay in American hands till the end of the game. And next we can set up our units. We are starting with 3 American squads, 1 American half squad and 1 commander. And they are starting on any of the hexes of this road, but we can place only 1 multi-man counter on each of these. So I'm going to place this one here, this one here, this goes here, and this one here, along with commander here. So that's the American setup. Also, to make everything easy to remember, I'm going to use a counter from the full advanced squad leader that marks north, and I'm going to mark it here. So this is the north edge of the board. This is quite important to remember because we'll have some reinforcements coming, and they are entering the board from the north, south, east, west, so it's good to remember where north is, to remember to make no mistakes while using the other units. And now, game is played in turns, so there is, for example, this scenario takes 5 turns, and each turn has 2 parts. In the first part, attacking player makes his action, and in the next part, defending player makes his actions. So in this scenario we have written that German moves first, so they will be performing their action first. And each turn is divided into phases, and first we have rally phase, we have prep fire phase, we have movement phase, we have defensive fire phase, advancing fire phase, road phase, advance phase, and close combat phase. And first we are playing all these phases for the German player, and next we are making these phases again, but for the American player. And after this we are moving to the next turn. So in this scenario, German player moves first, so we are starting with the turn 1 with German mark on the turn counter, so these are German phases first. And first we have rally phase. This is a phase we can skip mostly because we don't have any any American units that need to be rallied. They are all quite fine. But we have to place our units next to the hexes they are going to enter the game during movement phase. So we have 3 German squads. They are first line squad because they have 1 in the upper right corner of the board of the counter and 1 commander, and they are going to enter through the east edge. So here is north edge, so they are going to enter the board from the east edge, so it's from any of these hexes. So we have to place them on the proper positions to enter. I am going to place this squad here because my idea is to capture this building. It is quite important building because Americans are going to come from this area, so this this building will be very good to give them proper welcome. And the other 2 squads, along with their commander, are going to enter from this part, down this road maybe. And the other German group is entering from the west edge, so from here, and there are 3 German squads that are second line squads, so you can see they are weaker than the first line squad. They have their fire range only 4, not 6, and some commander. This is a quite a worse commander because he has no leadership modifier, and they are going to enter the board from this part. So I have to mark them, place them where I'm going to make them start. These 2 squads are going to enter from this, and they are going to enter from this. Okay, and they are prepared to enter the board, so we can skip rally phase and move further to the prep fire phase. We can skip prep fire phase because there are no German units on the board, so Americans are not able to fire on Germans because these units are still not on the board. And next we have movement phase, and in this phase we are starting movement of our Germans. So let's start moving our Germans. Basically, infantry units has 4 movement points. So they can move 1, 2, 3, 4. Of course, some terrain requires more movement points, but clear terrain requires 1. But there are options to increase this number. First, if you make your entire movement down the road, you get 1 additional movement point. So if I would move 1, 2, 3, 4, that would be all. But if I would make this movement only through the road hexes, so 1, 2, 3, 4, I would get 1 additional movement point, so I would be able to move 5. The other way to increase a movement factor is to use your commander. If you make your entire movement with your commander, you get 2 movement points. So they would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that would be because of the road, and then 1, 2 because of the commander. That you can see that would be very good. There is only one more option. To use counter-exclusion counter. It essentially gives us 2 movement points, but also it has some additional cons, because when unit has such a counter, it fires worse, and it has some other problems. So this is a good option if you need to reach some hex faster, but there is a price you have to pay. And so if I would use this, I could move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 because of the road, and 1, 2 because of this counter. It is removed in the next movement phase, and you cannot use it twice in a row. So you can, if you use this counter in the one movement phase, you cannot use it in the next movement phase. You have to wait 1 movement phase. So, how about these Germans? I'm going to move them. 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's all. They are not making any more actions. They are where they are, and that's where I'm going to place them. And next we have this group here. There are 2 squads along with their commander. So if they would use their commander and move as a stack, they would have +2 because of the commander. But if they would move alone, they couldn't use commander ability. So 1, 2, 3, 4, because if you enter a wood hex, you have to spend additional 2 movement points. Sorry, 1 movement point, and you pay 1 movement point per clear terrain and +1 because of the woods. So we still have 2 movement points. So 3. Sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that's where I'm going to stop. During this movement, I wasn't visible for any of the American units, so Americans weren't able to fire at me. But this is going to change. Now this squad moves here on this hex, and now they are in the line of sight of this American unit, because there is a line of sight. And because of that, Americans are able to fire on them. You can fire on the unit for each movement point it spends. So they spend 1 movement point to enter this clear terrain hex, so these American guys might fire at them once. So 1, 2, 3, 4. They are in the range, so Americans fire on them. This is called defensive first fire. We are marking our American unit with first fire marker, and we are resolving this fire combat. So first, American unit has firepower of 7, so we'll be using column of 6, because we are always using we are always rounding down our strength, our firepower. So if I would have 9 or 11, I would still use 8 column, but if I would have 13, 14, I would use 12. So I have to use a column of 6. And now I have to check any for modifiers. There are no terrain modifiers because Germans are in the clear terrain and there are no obstacles on our line of sight. But we get two modifiers. First is because Germans are moving in the clear terrain and there are no obstacles, we get -1 because of that. And next, because the Germans are using their normal movement, they are Americans are getting another modifier. So it is called FFMO and FFNAM. So first fire, movement in the open ground, and first fire, non-assault movement. Because units are allowed to make assault movement. Assault movement allows you to move only one hex only, but this makes this modifier impossible to use. So Americans are firing with -2 modifier, and they rolled worst result possible because it is 12 minus, and because if you get same result on the two die, you have to make one column shift. So we fired with 6, and because there is a double, we move to the 4, and we have 12 minus 2 is 10, so it is nothing. We are marking Americans with first fire, and we have to place residual fire on the hex. American firepower was 6, so we'll be using this counter, and each other unit that enters such hex gets fire with strength of 2. So Germans are safe and they are entering this building hex. And now Americans are allowed to fire at them again. We are flipping this counter on the final fire, and now they are firing with their strength halved. So they have strength of 3.5, and because of that we'll be using column of 2, because this is closest to the 3.5. Germans are still not using assault movement because they cannot, so we have -1, but they are in the building. They are in the building, so we are not getting modifier for enemy in the open ground, and instead we get a modifier because of the stone building. And modifier of the stone building is +3. So we get -1 so because enemy is not using assault movement, and +3 because of the stone building, so we have +2 with the in the column of 2. So this is going to be hard. But wow! We rolled 2, so we have to shift in the column of 1, but we have +2, so we have 4. So this is normal morale check for the defender. So Germans have to make normal morale check. This means morale check without any modifiers. We rolled 7. They passed because, sorry, we rolled 6. They passed because 6 is lower than 7. So they are fine. And we are placing residual fire of 1 on this hex. And finally, we have one more German unit stack that might move. They are moving down the road, and they are with commander. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because they are moving down the road, and 6, 7. Because of the commander. They are moving here, and now Americans, this American unit is able to fire on them because they are in the line of sight, but there will be some problems. First, there is an orchard on the way, and it will be an obstacle. It doesn't block our line of sight, but it hinders it, and the Germans are in the building. So we are firing with the strength of 7, so we'll be using column of 6. And now let's check for modifier. Germans are not using assault movement, so we get -1. Germans are in the building, so they are not in the clear terrain. there is a hindrance of our firepower, so we have +1, and the Germans are in the stone building, so there is +4, and -1, it is +3. So we are firing in the column of 6 with +3 modifier. Wow, this is another same result, so we move from 6 to 4, and we have 6 plus 3, it is 9, so it is a miss. So Americans missed, and now we fired with a strength of 6, and because of that we would place a residual fire of 2 here. But for each hindrance on our way we have to lower this residual fire, so there was 2, but because of the orchard here we reduce residual fire to 1. So that's all when it comes to the German movement phase, and at the end of the movement phase we remove all residual fire counters. Next we have defensive fire phase. In this phase, the defending player might fire on the enemy units with his units. Units that are marked with first fire are able to fire on the neighboring hexes only, and units with final fire are not able to fire at all. So let's check what we can do. This stack has these German units in the range, because we have American squad here that has a fire range of 4, so 1, 2, 3, 4. I could fire on these Germans in their movement phase, but I wanted to wait because my idea was to show you how defensive fire phase works. So I can fire on these Germans. I have -1 modifier because of the commander and +3 modifier because they are in the building. I don't use these modifiers for movement because this is not a movement phase, so I'm firing with 6 and modifier +2. So I make a roll and I roll 6. 6 plus 2 is 8. In the column of 6 it is pin test check. I have to make a morale check for German unit. They've passed, so they are fine. If they want, they would be marked as pinned. But they are not, so they are fine. And I'm marking unit that fired with final fire counter, so they cannot fire anymore. And we have this half squad here, but they don't have any German units in their range. Oh, maybe they have. They have this squad, but let's check. They have a range of 3, so 1, 2, 3. They can fire on the enemy on the twice of their range, but then their strength is halved. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They can fire with strength of 1.5, so it would be a strength of 1 with +3 because of the building. So it would be extremely hard for them to score a hit on Germans, but they might try. We rolled 4. 4 plus 3, it is 7. In the column of 1, it is nothing. Notice that I couldn't make a shift because of the double result, because this is a column of 1 and you cannot move any further. So they are marked with final fire as well. And that's the end of the defensive fire phase. We are removing all final fire and first fire counters from the board. Next is advancing fire phase. In this phase, attacking player might fire with his units on the enemy. So I can fire my Germans on this American unit, but there are some limitations. When you fire in the advancing fire phase, you have to halve your firepower. So they have firepower of 4 and a range of 4, so they have these Americans in range, so they would normally fire with firepower of 4, but because this is advancing fire phase, they are firing with 2. So they are firing on these Americans with 2, with no modifiers. They rolled 5. In the column of 2, it is normal morale check. So we have to make such a check for Americans. 7. It is the same result as their morale. And because of that, they are marked with pin. Pin is not something very bad, but it can be a problem later when unit tries to make any movement. And next, if there are any other German units that are going to make a movement, also you may. It is not. Game doesn't say that you have to, but it's good to mark units that fired in the advancing fire phase with prep fire counter to remember that you already used them. And now we can do the same here. They have 2, 4, so they will be firing on this American squad with the firepower of 4, and they get +1 because of this orchard. 9 + 1 is 10. In the column of 4, it is a miss, I believe. Yes, it is a miss, so nothing happened. I'm marking them with prep fire as well, and I think this is all, because the remaining German units haven't Americans in their line of sight. So that's all when it comes to the advancing fire phase, and we can remove these counters. Next phase is a road phase. In this phase, units that are marked with desperation morale counter, like this one, have to retreat. But we don't have any units that are broken, so we can skip this phase, and we are moving to the advance phase. In this phase, attacker units that are not marked with pin are able to move 1 hex only. And this is the only moment where they can enter the hex with enemy units on. Otherwise they cannot, because you can't enter hex occupied by the enemy units in your movement phase. You can do it only in the advance phase. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to move this squad here, these 2 squads here, and these 2 squads here. And that's all. And next we have close combat phase, but again we can skip this phase now, because close combat happens only if there are units of the 2 players on the same hex. And at the end of this phase we are removing pin counters from the board. And these are all phases, and now we have to play these phases again, but this time with American player as the attacker. So we can flip turn counter on the American side, and now in this turn we have 3 American squads along with a commander entering the board through the north part of the board, so north edge of the board. So we can place them on the hexes we want them to enter. So I think one of them will go here, and the other 2, or maybe not. I will try to make something like this. Okay, that's all when it comes to the movement, to the rally phase, because we don't have any broken units on the board, so we don't have to rally anyone, and we can move to the prep fire phase. In this phase, attacking player might fire on the defending player. But if you fire your unit in this phase, this unit won't be able to move or fire later in the advancing fire phase. So what Americans are going to do? First, I will fire this squad on these Germans. Because I'm on the neighboring hex, my firepower is doubled, so I'm firing with 14, and the Germans are in the building, so they have we have +3, so I'm firing with firepower of 14, and because of that I will be using a column of 12, and +3 because of the building. It is 5, 5 plus 3 is 8, so it is 1 MC. So Germans are making a morale check with +1 negative modifier. So let's start with their commander. His morale is 8. I rolled 8 plus 1, it is 9. He has -1 leadership modifier, but he cannot use it for himself. So he is broken. This is bad. And because he is broken, he cannot use his modifier for the remaining units, so I have to make morale check for these two guys as well. 3 passed, and 8 not passed, so they are marked with defense desperation morale counter as well. And I have to mark my Americans as prep fire. And now, there is one more action I tend to forget about quite often while playing, so it's good I remember about it now. If your leader breaks and you have some other good other units on the same hex, like for example here, you have to make additional morale check for them. It is called leader loss task check. If your this leader is broken and he has, where he is, oh, he's here, and he had -1 modifier. So we have to make a morale check for this good order German squad with negative modifier +1 because of the -1 of this commander. So, oh my god. And this is the worst situation possible. Not only they are broken, but they have to be replaced with a unit of the lowest rank. Why? I will tell you why. First I have to find a proper counter. Yes. And now let's talk about this. First we rolled 11. +1, it is 12. In each scenario card, we have efficiency rating of the side. For Germans, it is 3. It is here. And if during the morale check you get a result which is higher than your morale plus efficiency rating, you have to remove your unit and replace it with the lower rank. So, for example, this German squad is first line, so we have to replace it with second line. So it is removed from the board. It is also broken because it failed to make a morale check, and it is replaced with second line squad. So it was very good shooting for Americans. And now there is a question if Americans want to shoot somewhere else. Because if we will open fire during the prep fire phase, we cannot move such unit. And for example, I would prefer to move this unit later during the movement phase, so I'm not going to fire with them now. And I am moving to the movement phase. Alright, so let's move our Americans. What I am going to do? First, I'm moving this squad here, and I am making assault movement, because I'm moving only one hex. And now these Germans are able to fire at me. They are fire at me with 4 and 4, so they are firing with the strength of 8. And now let's check their modifiers. I entered building, stone building, so I get +3. And because I made assault movement, a German player doesn't get -1 modifier. So they are firing at me with strength of 8 and +3 modifier. They rolled 9, +3 it's 12, in the column of 8. This is a miss, so they are both marked with first fire, and this hex is marked with the residual fire of 4. So that's for them. Now this squad moves 1, 2, because you pay 1 additional movement point. Sorry, I'm gonna check. You have to pay 2 movement points to enter a stone building, so I move 2 and 4. They are here. Now they are in the range of fire of this German unit, I believe. I have to check to make sure. Yes. But the Germans decide to not open fire because they are rather waiting for these Americans here. So they are good. And now I am going to move this stack here. It's a assault movement because I move just 1 hex, and these Germans may fire at me as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So they are firing. Their strength, their firepower is halved. So they are firing me with the firepower of 2, with +3 modifier because of the building. This is 13, so it is a miss. Okay, and a residual fire of 1. Okay, and that's all when it comes to this part of the board. And now we have these Americans who are entering the board here. I'm going to start with this stack. They are moving 1, 2, 3. And now they can be fired by these Germans. Germans are firing with a firepower of 4, and we get +3 because of the building, -1 because of the non-assault movement. So we have +2. It is 5 + 2. It's 7. 7 in the column of 4. It is pin test check. So we have to make a check first for the commander. He failed, so he's pinned. And now for his troops, they failed, so they are pinned as well. So I might just let this counter bid here for both of them. Germans are marked with first fire, and this hex is marked with the residual fire of 2. Now these guys, 1, 2, 3, and these Germans cannot fire on them. Why? Because they cannot fire further than their previous target. So they fired on the 3 hexes range, so now they can fire on the 3 hexes range only. So 1, 2, 3. And Americans are moving here. So they are still out of range of these Germans, but they are entering the range of these Germans, because they fired on the range of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So they are firing on these Americans. They have firepower of 4, but since they are using, they already fired and they are firing twice. They have to they have to halve their firepower. So they are firing with the strength of 2, with -1 because enemy is moving in the open ground, and -1 because they are moving with non-assault movement. So we have strength of 2 with -2 modifier. It is 8 -2, it's 6. In the column of 2, it is pin test check. So Americans passed. We are placing residual fire of 2, and 1, 2, 3, 4. That's all. That's how far they can move. And now these guys, 1, 2.5, and 4. And that's because this is a grain and you pay 1.5 movement point for moving down through the grain area. And that's all when it comes to the American movement phase. We are removing all residual fire markers. And next we have defensive fire phase, but Germans cannot fire. Why? Because all their units are marked with first fire or final fire, and first fire units are able to move only on the neighboring hex, and final fire units are not able to fire during defensive fire phase, while this stack isn't all broken. So I'm not firing with Germans, and I'm removing first fire and final fire markers, and I am moving to the next phase, which is advancing fire phase. In this phase, Americans are able to fire on Germans, with their strength being halved. So they cannot fire because they are already marked with prep fire, but I think that these guys can fire. 1, 2, 3, 4. So Germans are in the range, and Americans have the firepower underlined. This means that they have their special ability called assault fire. So, what assault fire is? A unit that has its firepower underlined may perform assault fire. It is a special option that allows unit to fire with the higher firepower during assault fire. How it works? It is quite problematic, and I noticed that many players have problems about this rule, so I'm going to explain it carefully. At the beginning of the assault fire, we are first halving our firepower strength, so we have 3.5, and then after all the other modifications, if necessary, we add +1, so we have 3.5 plus 1, it's 4.5, and then we are rounding this up. So 4.5 rounded up gives us 5. So this unit has assault fire power of 5. So we'll be using a column of 4, and we have +3 modifier because there is a stone building. So we are firing with a firepower of 4 with +3. Oh, this is a miss. So I'm placing prep fire counter here. Next, here. We have the same situation, but there is also a grain here. A grain is a hindrance, it gives us +1. So we are firing with 4 with firepower of 3 because of the stone building, and +1 because of the grain, so we have +4 modifier. So this is likely a miss, but let's make a roll. 8 plus 4, it is 12. It is a clear miss. Okay, and next is here. They also have a firepower of 4, and they are firing on these Germans. So we have 4 plus 3 because of the stone building, and -1 because of the commander. So we have 4 and +3 modifier. It is 4 plus 4, it is 8. 8 in the column of 4, it is still a miss. And next I may fire with them. Sorry, I should mark them with prep fire first. And they are firing with 4 again, with +3 because of the building. 6 plus 4 plus 3, it is 9, so it is a miss again. You can see that there is a little chance to score a hit with assault fire against an enemy in the building, but it is always worth to try, because you don't risk anything. In the full advanced squad leader, there is always a risk that you might activate enemy sniper every time you make a roll for fire combat and so. But in the starter kit there are no snipers, so you don't have to worry about it, so you can fire anytime you like, even if you have a very little chance to score a hit. And next here. Here we have a more complicated situation because we have a pin. So we are halving our firepower because we are firing during assault fire. So we have assault phase. So we have 3.5, and next we are halving this again because of the pin counter. So we have 3.5, and it is halved again. So it is 1 and 75, and then we are at +1. So we have 2 and 71. So it is rounded up to 3, and because of that we'll be using a column of 2 with -1 because of the commander. So we are firing on them with firepower of 2 and modifier +2 because of the building and the commander. 6. And when you have a commander, you can ignore effect of the double roll. So we are using of column of 2. 6 plus 2 is 8. It is a miss again. And I think that's all. Yes, that's all when it comes to the assault fire phase. Sorry, advancing fire phase. We are removing all the orange counters in this at the end of this phase. And next we have a road phase. In the road phase, all the units with desperation morale counters, these blue ones, that are on the hex neighboring with enemy units, have to retreat to the nearest building or woods possible. So let's check this hex. They have woods here, they have building here, and building here and building there. So they have to retreat to the one of these hexes. We have to check which option is the best. I believe this is the best option to start, because there's no enemy units that may trace a line of sight to this hex. Of course there is this unit, but it has a range of 3, so 1, 2, 3, so we are out of their effective range. I have to check if they don't have I don't think so, but I would rather check to make sure. No, a building is blocking. So they are here, and now I can move here or there. Which is the best? I think the building, because building provides us better cover. So that's all when it comes to the road of this stack. And you can see that when you are routing, you can route with your entire stack. You don't have to route your units individually, especially when there is commander with them. So they are here. You can also put one desperation morale counter on the entire stack if it consists on only broken unit, but I place desperation morale counter on each unit just to remember. Okay, that's all when it comes to the road phase, and next we have advance phase. In this phase we can move our American units one hex, save to the units marked as pinned. Units that are marked as pinned cannot perform advance during advance phase. So I am moving these guys here, these guys here, these guys here, and these guys here. So that's all when it comes to the advance phase, and since there are no units of both sides on one hex, we don't have any close combat phase, so I am removing pin counter, and this concludes turn 1 of the game. We are moving to the turn 2. And now we have a German rally phase. In the rally phase we can rally our units that are marked with desperation morale or just broken. So we have a stack of the broken units here. It consists of 2 squads and 1 commander. So I am going to start with my commander, because if I would be able to rally him, he then would be able to support a rally of his troops. So I'm starting with him. He has morale of 8, and when it's in the counter like this, he can rally himself. Because broken units normally, like for example them, don't have such a counter. So it means that they cannot rally themselves normally, they need a commander to do so. But when a unit has such counter in the broken morale, it means that it can rally itself. So it has morale of 8, we have +4 because of this counter, and -1 because he is in the building. So we make a morale check with +3 modifier. I rolled 12, so it is a miss. He is not rallied. And next, attacking player, or the one who has an initiative in this phase, may rally one of his units which are not capable to rally themselves normally. So I might try to rally this German unit or this German unit. I think I might try with this one, since I believe, yes, this is a first line unit and the other is second line unit. So it's better, it's a higher chance to, it is best to rally them. So I am rolling 10, it is a miss. And now, at the end of the rally phase, we are removing all the desperation morale counters from the units that are not adjacent to the enemy units. Also, in the rally phase, a German player has to place his troops that are going to enter the battle in this phase. We have 3 German paratroops squads along with commanders, and they are entering through the east edge. So they are coming from this part of the board, and where I'm going to place them? I think that I place one squad here, and the other 2 squads are going to enter from here. And that's all when it comes to the rally phase. And next we have prep fire phase. In this phase I can fire with my Germans, and of course that's what I'm going to do. First, these guys are firing on this American squad. Americans are in the clear terrain, so we don't have any die roll modifiers. We are just firing with the firepower of 4. It is 7. In the firepower, in the column of 4, it is pin test check. So I have to make a check for Americans. I rolled 11, so they are pinned. And I'm placing prep fire counter on these Germans. And the next one is this. They are firing on these Americans. They are in the grain, but grain provides no cover when you are firing a unit on the hex with a grain. If it's on the line of our of our line of sight, then it provides some hindrance. But when you're firing on the unit that is on the hex with grain, we have no modifiers, so we are firing with 4 again. It is 6, so it is quite a good roll. In the column of 4, it is normal morale check. So Americans have to perform morale check. It is 6, so they passed. I'm marking Germans with prep fire. And now the most important combat is here. I am firing with these 2 German squads. They have firepower of 8, and because I am firing on the neighboring hex, I have my firepower doubled. So I have 16 firepower, and Americans are in the stone building, so I have +3. So I'll be using column of 16 with +3 modifier. It is 9 +3, it is 12. So it is a miss. It was unlucky roll for Germans. And I think, yes, this concludes our prep fire phase. So let's make a movement with our Germans. We have a limit of movement because most of our units are, some of our units are broken or they are already fired, so we can only move with these newly upcoming squads. let's start with them. 1, 2, and now if Americans want, they might fire on Germans. Let's check if they have range. Line of sight is cool because there are no obstacles on the way, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But Germans are in the range of 5, and Americans have a range of 4. So we will have our range halved, our firepower halved. So, but if they will reach this hex, then this building will provide them some cover. So no, I'm trying to fire on them. So I have firepower of 3.5, and it's rounded down to 2. So I'm firing with 2. Modifiers are -1 because of the commander, -2 because moving in the open ground, -3 because moving in the with non-assault movement, and there is and there is +1 modifier because of this grain. When you are not sure if there is a hindrance or not, you have to take something and draw a line from one center of the one hex to another. As you can see, we have no grain on this line, so this grain provides no hindrance to our fire. So we are firing with the firepower of 2 and -3 modifier. So this might be quite a raw situation for Germans. Oh my god. 7 -3, it is 4. It is 4 in the column of 2. So it is 1 MC. So Germans have to make a morale check with +1 modifier. 11. So they are broken. They are placed with desperation morale. Americans get first fire counter, and we have a residual fire of 1 placed here. Okay, that wasn't very good for Germans, and now this stack, they are moving with their commander, so they have +2. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And now Americans may fire on them as well. Americans have firepower of 7, so they have 6. We have +1 because of the woods, -1 because of the non-assault movement. So we are firing with 6 and 6 firepower and no modifiers. It is 7 in the firepower column of 6. This is normal morale check. First we have to roll for the commander. 7, he passed, and because he passed, he will use his modifier on his troops. So I will have -1 modifier for each of my morale checks for these two groups, two units. First for this squad. 4, they passed, and 9, oh, and 9 we have -1, so they have 8. So because of that they are pinned, while all the others are fine. Americans are marked with first fire, and we have residual fire of 2 placed here. And now it would be the end of the movement for this unit, but it's not the end of the Americans firing on it. Why? Because it spent 2 movement points to enter this hex, and because of that they might fire on them again. So they are going to do so. They have their firepower halved because of that, so they have 3.5 rounding down, so we have firepower of 2, and we have -1 because of the non-assault movement, and +1 because of the wood, so we have 0. So we are firing with the firepower of 2 with modifier of 0. Wow, I rolled 5, so it is pretty good. 2, 5 in the column of 2 is normal morale check. So Germans have to make a morale check for their stack as well. First for the commander, he passed, so he provides a modifier for his units. First for them. Oh, and we have 10, -1, it's 9, so it's still higher than 8. So this German squad is broken. And now for the Spinet squad, we have 4, so they are fine. And notice that we are residual fire is never stacking. I fired on we are always using only the higher residual fire counter possible. So we are not using and now when I fire it on them again, I do not add more to this residual fire. I keep the biggest residual fire counter value possible, so it is still 2. And now I can fire on them with any more of my units? I don't think so, because they cannot. This building blocks their line of sight, and I think that's all when it comes to the German movement phase. So I am removing residual fire counters, and I am moving to the defensive fire phase. So Americans have an option to fire on the enemy now. I am starting with them. They have a firepower of 7, and because they are firing on this hex, they have their strength doubled, so they have 14, and 14 plus 3, it is going to be, oh my, 10 in the 12 firepower. It is pin test check, so I have to make a pin test check for Germans. First for the commander, he passed. For the first squad, they failed. And for the second squad, they passed. So one German squad is pinned. Americans are marked with final fire. And next, this unit fires on this German stack as well. They have 7, so they have firepower of 6, plus 3 because of the building, and -1 because of the commander, so they are using column of 6 with +2 modifier. 9, it is probably a miss. Yes, it is a miss. So they didn't achieve anything, and now here they are firing on them with firepower of 6 and -3 because of the building. It is a miss, but like I said, it is always worth to try. It won't hurt you to try to hit the enemy. And they are pinned, so they have their firepower halved, so they are firing on them with firepower of 2 plus 3. Of course it is a miss. And I think that's all. Can I fire anywhere? Oh, they can fire on these Germans. Can be a problem because of the grain. No, grain is not blocking, but we have a range of 3. 1, 2, 3. So we can fire with the firepower of 1. It is a miss as well. And that was the last defensive fire possible, so I am removing all the final defensive fire counters from the board. And next we are moving to the advancing fire phase. And the question is if Germans can perform any advancing fire. Yes, I think they can. Well, one of this squad is pinned and the other is broken, so it will be hard. But let's make it. Let's make it. They have 5, and notice that they have underlined firepower, so they have assault fire option as well. So they are firing. They have firepower of 5. it is halved because of the advancing fire, so it is 2.5. It is halved again because of the pinned, so it is 1 and 25. And now we add +1, so we have 2 and 25. And we are rounding up because of the assault fire, so we have 3. So we'll be using a column of 2 with +3 modifier because of the building and -1 because of the commander, so our modifier will be +2. 7 plus 2 is 9, so it is a miss. That's what I expected, but it's not a problem to try, and that's all because all the other Germans are marked with some prep fire, or they are broken, so they cannot fire at all. And next we have a road phase. So we have one German unit which is in the clear terrain, so they have to road, and they are moving here. And now this unit has them out of its range of fire, and also they are covered with grain here, so they are safe. And these 1, 2, 3, 4, they don't have them in the range of fire, so they are safe. So they are moving to this building. As for the other German units, this squad is broken, but it is in the woods, so it may stay here with its commander, hoping that commander will rally them. And now here they are pinned, so they don't have to road. So that's all when it comes to the road phase. And next we have advance phase. So Germans are able to make a 1 hex movement. And the question is if they want to. I might try to make something like this. This is quite a risky action, but that's what I'm going to do. And I am marking them with close combat. They are going to fight hand-to-hand against these Americans. I couldn't use this squad as well because it is marked with pinned, and pinned units cannot move during advance phase. So that's all when it comes to the advance phase, and next we are going to have our first close combat. So let's talk a bit about resolving combat, close combat. Every time a unit enters a hex with enemy unit, we are marking substack with close combat counter. This tells us that at the beginning of the close combat phase we'll be resolving this combat for the first time, because close combat might last longer than the one turn, or last phase, or one phase. We are starting with an ambush die roll. We are rolling for each side, and if any of sides achieve a die roll which is at last lower than 3 than enemy result, it achieves ambush. So we are rolling for Germans, I get 2, and for Americans it is 1. It is 1. So we have there is a difference of 1 between this die roll, so no ambush occurs. So next we have to compare strength of the fighting units. We have 7 against 4, and the Germans are attacking. So we have 4 against 7, it is 1 to 2. So this is not a very good result. And we have, to achieve any success, we have to roll 4 or less on the 2d6 to gain a success. So I'm making a roll, and it is 8. So it is higher than 4, so Germans achieved nothing. And now Americans are attacking back. They have 7 against 4, so they have 3 to 1. And they are making a roll. They roll 10, so nothing happened. And if nothing happened, we are flipping a close combat counter on the melee side, and it tells us that this combat is going to continue in the next phase. And at the end of the close combat phase, we are removing all the pin markers from the board. And this concludes German actions during turn 2. Now I can flip counter on the American side, and we are making American actions during these same phases. We are starting with rally phase. In the rally phase, you can still rally your or enemy units. American units are not broken anywhere, so they are fine, but Germans still have some stuff to do. First, we have this commander here, so he can try to rally himself. Oh, he has a bad luck, so he's not rallied. And now this commander might try to rally this squad. He has -1 because of the commander, -1 because of the woods, and +4 because of desperation morale counter, so we have +2. Oh my! And if we roll 12, this means that unit is reduced. This is a very bad. So we are taking half squad of the same kind. We have to check. Oh no, this is not the same because it has E in the circle, while this has E in the square. So I have to check for unit with E in the circle. Oh, here it is. We take half squad and we replace such unit with half squad counter, of course with a broken side. So that was very unlucky, and I cannot try to rally this group because you can see their morale is not in the square. And I am removing all the desperation morale counters. Okay, and next, since Americans have some reinforcement in this phase, in this turn, I'm going to place them next to the board, and my idea is to place one of them here, one of them there, and the commander will go with them. So that's all when it comes to the rally phase. So we can start moving our Americans. I have to say that things are not going very well for Germans, but still Americans have to control all these buildings, so there is still a chance that Germans might capture one of them, and even capturing a single one of them gives them a victory. So let's start with American prep. Sorry, I forgot completely that I should make prep fire phase first. So we have to make a prep fire before we move. So I'm going to fire with this squad supported by the commander, and they are firing on them. So I have firepower of 6, -1 because of the commander, and +3 because of the building. So I have firepower of 6 with +2. It is 8. So I think it is a miss, or maybe something in the column of 6. It is pin test check for Germans. They passed. So I have prep fire, and now they if they would like to fire on this stack, they would then we would have to resolve a fire combat for both sides. So they might actually fire on their own troops. So that's something I wouldn't like to do. But I still can fire on this squad here before it will be able to join this battle. So I'm firing on them. I have firepower of 7, so it is 6, +3 because of the building, and -1 because of the commander. That's bad. It is a miss. Okay. And what's going to happen next is, I think here, they are firing on this stack, They have firepower of 6 and we have plus 7, so sorry, they have firepower of 7, so we use column of 6, and we have plus 1 because there is a woods. Oh, that was a good shot. We have 5 plus 1, it is a 6. 6 in the column of 6 is 1 MC, so we have 1 morale check. Plus 1, with plus 1 modifier. First for the commander, 7, he passed. So he provides his own modifier for his guys. First for them, they passed, and now they passed. This is good because if broken unit fails morale check, it is halved, and since they were already halved, they would be eliminated. So they were quite lucky, and I think this is everything I am going to do during the prep fire phase. Yes. So let's move our Americans, and what are we going to do now? I'm going to start with them, and I'm moving them here. And now these Germans may fire on them if they want to, and I think they want to. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. They are in the range, so they are firing with the firepower of 4. And now they are not using assault movement, so we have -1, but they are not in the clear terrain because there is an orchard, so we have no FFMO modifier, so we have only -1. And orchard provides us no cover. It is a hindrance if it's on the line of sight, but no cover when it's fired on. So we are firing with 4 and -1 modifier. Oh, that's pretty good. It's 5 -1, it's 4. 4 in the column of 4, it is 1 MC. So Americans have to make a morale check with -1 plus 1, so they have 10. 10 plus 7, it is a fail, so they are broken. We are marking Germans with first fire and placing residual fire of 2 here. And next, I'm going to move with this American squad here. Oh my, there is a sun! My, I have a problem with sun. Okay, this should be... I might zoom a bit to avoid. Okay. Oh, that should be good, I believe. Maybe even better. Okay, so I'm moving them here. And so these Germans are firing on them because they are in the range and they are in the closest range than this. Guys, so I'm firing with a firepower of 2 and -2 because -1 of first fire non-assault movement and first fire movement in the open ground, another -2, so I'm firing with firepower of 2 and -2 modifier. Oh my! Oh, that was bad. This one was here. Okay, everything else is fine. So let's make another die roll. Oh, this is 4. 4 -2, it's 2. So this is going to be a great result for Germans. We have 2, so it is K1. K1 means that the unit is reduced and has to perform a morale check with +1. So for the first, Americans are suffering reduction, so they have so they are reduced from squad to half squad. So I have to find proper counter. It will take me a moment or two. Oh, here it is. And next we have to make a morale check with +1 modifier. 6 plus 1, it is 7, so they are pinned. Well, I have to say that these guys made quite a good job with successfully stopping two of the American units approaching them, so that's what's good. And also we have to flip this on the final fire. So the Germans weren't very lucky in this game, so finally they did some good job. Okay, and next we have some American units entering the board. So we are starting with this stack. It moves down the road. 1, 2, 3, 4. I will place a die to remember that they spent 4 movement points, and now these Germans are firing on them with firepower of 4 and -2 modifier. So it's 7. 7 in the column of 4 is pin test check. For the commander, he passed, and for his men, well, they failed, so they are pinned. And commander decides to stay with them, to not make any other movement, or maybe he should. Or maybe he should wait a bit. First, give them and next residual fire. And I'm thinking of making this commander move a bit further. Why? You will see. I am moving him here, and then these Germans are firing on him again. They are fire with the firepower of 2 and -2. So it is 9 -2, it's 7. So it is a miss. And we've placed one. And I am sorry if I can. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, that's all. I don't want to move him any further. That's where he should be. Okay, and now this American unit moves. 1, 2, 3, 4. And now they can perform their final protective fire. This is the last option for unit to fire. It fires with its strength halved, but it can only fire on the adjacent unit. So they have strength halved and then doubled because they are firing on the neighboring hex, so they have firepower of 4, but the die roll is also a morale check for the firing unit. So I'm firing with the firepower of 4 and with -2 modifier because of first fire non-assault movement and first fire in the movement in the open ground. So it is 8. So it is higher than 7. So Germans are broken because of that. That's why this option is very risky for the attack, for the defender. And now it was 8. It is -2, so it is 6. And 6 in the column of 4. It is normal morale check for the defender. So I have to make a roll for Americans. 9. They are broken as well. That's quite an unusual situation, since both sides are actually broken. So that's not something you can see quite often in this game, actually. Okay, that's all I think when it comes to the American movement. Or maybe not. I have a half squad here, and I'm actually thinking of using it. Why? You will see. 1, 2, 3. So that's my entire movement. Yes, that's my entire movement, so I can remove all these residual fire counters from the board. Okay, and I can move to the defensive fire phase. There is only one place, no, maybe not, but there is only one good chance for Germans to score some hits in the defensive fire phase. It is here. We have this squad with firepower of 5, firing on these Americans, and they have commanders, so they have -1, so we'll be firing with the firepower of 4, and they are in the stone building, so we have +3, and because of the commander we have +2, so we are firing with firepower of 4 and +2, it is 6, +2 it's 8, in the firepower of 4 it is a miss. So that's most of them. We can also fire with these guys, but there is a very little chance they actually do something. I'm going to fire on them. I have firepower 4 and +3 because of the stone building, so it is a miss. And that's all. All the remaining German units are not able to fire, so I'm going to remove all the first fire, final fire counters from the board. And that's all when it comes to the defensive fire phase. So, after defensive fire phase we have advancing fire phase, and now American units may fire on Germans, but there is also a little of chance for them to fire, since some of them are pinned, some of them already prep fired, so let's check what they can do. First, this half squad. It decides to fire on this German broken squad. They have a firepower of 3, but so it is halved because of the advancing fire, and it is doubled because we are firing on the adjacent hex. So we are firing with a strength of 3, so it will be column of 2, and we have a +3 modifier because of the stone building here. Oh, it is quite a good result, so we have 6. In the column of 2, it is pin test check. Not quite good, because a unit which is already broken cannot be pinned. So we achieved literally nothing. And any other American units that might fire and achieve something? I don't think so. No. Any of them. So let's remove prep fire counters from the board. And next is going to be road phase. And I am first I have to route. So I'm routing here, and these guys are routing 1, 2. So that's all for Americans, because none other Americans are broken. So okay, and now Germans, and that's where things are going to be a bit more complicated, because they cannot enter here because this hex is neighboring to the enemy unit, and same to these hexes. So all they can do is to move here. This is not a clear terrain, so they are fine, and a broken unit has 8 movement points. So they move 1.5, 3, 3.5, 5.5. So they are here. Well, it will take some time for them to get up and be ready into action again. And next we have advance phase. So we are moving our American units, but not the ones marked as pin. So I'm moving this commander here, so he will be able to rally these guys, I hope so. This half squad takes this place, and this stack enters this hex. So the commander will help to rally these troops. And I think that's all, because none other American units need to move. So that's all. Yes. And next we have a close combat phase. So we are going to continue with this close combat here. And so Germans have 4 and commander 5 plus 7. So they have 1 to 2. So they are still not in a very good situation. 7, they missed. And Americans have 3 to 2, 7, so it's still more than 6. So they get, both sides achieved nothing, and that's how this battle ends. It is going to last longer. And that's all when it comes to the first 2 turns of the game. I think that's the good moment to stop this part of the video, and see you again in the part 2.